Jake Morrison stood in the biggest room he had ever seen. The walls reached so high that he could not see the top. Lights floated in the air like stars. Around him sat creatures that looked nothing like humans. Some were made of crystal and glowed with soft colors. Others looked like clouds of gas that moved and spoke. There were beings with too many arms and eyes that sparkled like diamonds. This was the Galactic Council, the most important place in known space. Every species that wanted to trade or travel between stars had to come here. They had to follow the rules that the Council made. Jake was here because humanity had finally earned a seat at this table after 50 years of proving they were not savages. But today felt different. Today felt wrong. The Chancellor was a being called Vextai. It looked like a walking piece of purple crystal that was 3 times taller than Jake. When it spoke, its voice came from everywhere at once. The sound made Jake's teeth hurt. "We have gathered today to discuss the human problem," Vextai said. The words hit Jake like cold water. He looked around the room and saw that every alien eye was staring at the human delegation. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat at the front table. She was Earth's best diplomat. She had worked for 20 years to get humanity this far. Her face was calm, but Jake could see her hands were tight on her chair. "The humans have been part of our council for 5 years now," Vextai continued. "In that time, we have seen disturbing reports. Human colonies expand faster than any other species. Human merchants take trade routes that others avoid. Human explorers go to dangerous places where no sane being would travel." Jake felt his stomach drop. This was not going the way anyone had hoped. A creature that looked like a giant bug raised one of its 6 arms. The humans also fight more than any other species. Their military ships carry weapons that could destroy entire planets. They have wars in their own history that killed millions of their own kind. "This is true," said another voice. This one came from a being made of living metal. "Humans solve problems with violence first. They ask questions later. This is not the way of civilized species." Lisa stood up slowly. "Honored council members, humanity has always been willing to defend itself. But we have never started a war with any council species. We have followed every rule. We have—" "Silence!" Vextai's voice was like thunder. The crystal being grew brighter and more angry looking. "The evidence is clear. Humans are too dangerous to be allowed to keep their weapons. You fight too much. You kill too easily. You make others afraid." Jake felt his blood turn cold. He looked at the other humans in the room. Colonel Amy Brooks sat 2 seats away. She was a Marine who had fought in 3 different conflicts. Her face looked like stone, but her eyes were full of fire. Dr. Peter Hayes was there too. He was a scientist who studied alien life. He looked confused and scared. "The Council has made a decision," Vextai announced. "All human weapons are banned from Council space. No guns, no missiles, no bombs, no energy weapons. Nothing that can be used to harm others. Human ships will carry no weapons. Human colonies will have no defenses. Human soldiers will carry no arms." The room was so quiet that Jake could hear his own heartbeat. Lisa's voice was very small when she spoke. "Chancellor, this will leave us defenseless. There are hostile species out there. Pirates, raiders, things that want to hurt innocent people. Then you will learn to solve problems the way civilized beings do," Vextai said, "with words. With trade. With diplomacy. Violence is the tool of savages. If humans want to remain in the Council, they will prove they can be better than their animal nature." A being made of swirling gas spoke up. "Any human found with weapons in Council space will be arrested. Any human ship carrying weapons will be destroyed. Any human colony that builds defenses will be abandoned. These are the terms. Accept them or leave the Council forever." Jake's hands were in fists now. Every human in the room looked ready to fight. But they were surrounded by thousands of aliens. They were far from home. They had no choice. Lisa's voice was steady when she answered. "We accept the Council's decision." Later that night, the human delegation met in their guest rooms. The building was beautiful, but it felt like a prison. Amy paced back and forth like a caged animal. Her boots made sharp sounds on the floor. "This is insane," she said. "They want us to police the galaxy with harsh language and good feelings. The first time pirates attack a human ship, people will die." "Maybe that's what they want," said Dr. Hayes. "Maybe they hope we'll fail. Maybe they want an excuse to kick us out of the Council." Jake had been quiet for a long time. He stood by the window looking out at the alien city. Finally, he spoke. "They made a mistake." Everyone turned to look at him. "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. Jake held up his hands. He looked at his fingers, his palms, the strength in his arms. They banned our weapons. They said we can't carry guns or bombs or missiles, but they never said anything about us. Amy stopped pacing. I don't understand. Think about it, Jake said. What made humans dangerous before we had guns? What made us survive on Earth when everything wanted to kill us? What made us the top species on our planet? Dr. Hayes was starting to smile. We did. That's right, Jake said. Humans are weapons. Our hands are weapons. Our minds are weapons. Our bodies are weapons. We don't need tools to be dangerous. We just forgot that because we had tools for so long. Colonel Brooks was grinning now. It was not a nice smile. They think they neutered us. They think they made us harmless. Let them think that, Jake said. Let them believe their own lies about civilized behavior and peaceful solutions. When the first crisis comes, when the first innocent people need help, we'll show them what humans really are. Lisa looked worried. Jake, we can't start a war with the Council. We won't start anything, Jake replied. We'll just be what we've always been, survivors, problem solvers, protectors of the innocent. The only difference is we'll do it without the tools they're afraid of. He looked around the room at his fellow humans. They want to see what civilized humans look like? Fine, let's show them. But when the time comes, when people need help and the Council's pretty words aren't enough, we'll remind them what humans were before we became civilized. The room was quiet for a moment. Then Amy laughed. It was a sound full of promises and threats. This is going to be fun. Outside the window, alien ships moved through the night sky like glowing insects. They thought they had solved the human problem. They thought they had made the galaxy safe from humanity's violent nature. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Dr. Rachel Kim stood at the center of the Grand Assembly, surrounded by the most powerful beings in known space. The council chamber was packed with representatives from every major species in the galaxy. Crystalline vexti floated in their energy fields. Gaseous nebulons swirled in containment spheres. Insectoid hive minds clicked and buzzed in their translation boxes. All of them were staring at her. Rachel was Earth's leading expert on human biology and evolution. She had been called to explain what the galaxy was witnessing. The council wanted answers about human capabilities, and she was here to give them the truth. Honored council members, Rachel began, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. There seems to be a fundamental misunderstanding about human nature. She activated her holographic projector. Images of human anatomy appeared in the air above her head. Skeletal structure, muscle groups, nervous systems, brain scans. Data that most species found boring but which told a story that would change everything. When you banned human weapons 6 months ago, you believed this would make us harmless. You thought removing our tools would reduce our threat level to acceptable parameters. But you made a critical error in your calculations. A nebulan representative's gaseous form rippled with curiosity. What error, human? You assumed that weapons were the source of human danger. You failed to understand what humans are underneath our technology. The hologram shifted to show comparative anatomy charts, human skeletons next to those of other council species. The differences were dramatic and telling. Most civilized species evolved from herbivores or peaceful omnivores. Your ancestors ate plants or small creatures that couldn't fight back. You developed intelligence to solve social problems, not survival problems. Your bodies reflect this peaceful evolution. She pointed to a crystalline skeleton. Vexti bones are designed for energy storage and light manipulation. Very efficient, very elegant, but fragile by human standards. The hologram changed to show nebulon biology. Gaseous species like the nebulons evolved in low-pressure environments. They're incredibly intelligent and adaptable, but they have no experience with physical conflict. What about us? Asked a Saurian representative. The reptilian species were known for being tough and aggressive. Saurians are interesting, Rachel admitted. You evolved from predators, but from ambush hunters. You're built for single, decisive strikes, very effective in your natural environment. The hologram shifted again to show human anatomy in detail. The assembled aliens leaned forward, paying attention now. Humans evolved on a death world. Everything on Earth was trying to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the diseases. We survived by becoming the most dangerous thing on the planet. She manipulated the hologram to show human muscle attachments and bone density. Look at our hands. These aren't just tools for manipulation. They're precision weapons evolved over millions of years. A human grip can exert over 600 kilograms of pressure per square centimeter. Gasps and concerned noises came from the assembled aliens. That was enough force to crush most alien bones. Our reflexes are 3 times faster than the galactic average. Our pattern recognition allows us to instantly identify weaknesses in any system we encounter. Our spatial reasoning means we can navigate complex 3-dimensional environments by instinct. A hive mind clicked nervously. Are you saying humans are naturally violent? I'm saying we're naturally survivors, Rachel corrected. Violence is just one tool in our survival kit, but it's the one we're best at. She changed the hologram again to show human neural pathways. Human brains aren't just thinking organs. They're tactical computers. We can process multiple threat scenarios simultaneously. We can adapt our behavior in real time based on changing conditions. We can coordinate complex group activities without verbal communication. The chamber was very quiet now. The implications were beginning to sink in. Before we developed technology, humans were persistence hunters. We would chase prey animals for days until they collapsed from exhaustion. We didn't need to be faster or stronger. We just needed to be more stubborn. She smiled, and several aliens moved back from that expression. We were also pack hunters. We could coordinate attacks with dozens of other humans using nothing but gestures and eye contact. We could surround prey animals and predict their movements. We could set traps and ambushes that were impossible to escape. Chancellor Vextai's crystal form pulsed with deep purple light. Dr. Kim, are you threatening this council? No, Chancellor. I'm explaining why your weapons ban backfired. You wanted to civilize humans by removing our tools of war. Instead, you reminded us what we were before we needed tools. The hologram showed human evolutionary history. Primitive humans with stone tools, then metal weapons, then firearms, then energy weapons. Each technological advance had made humans more dangerous, but also more dependent on their tools. For the last 1,000 years, humans have relied on weapons to solve problems. We forgot how to fight with our bare hands. We forgot how to hunt without guns. We forgot how to kill without machines. She looked around the chamber at the worried alien faces. Your weapons ban forced us to remember. Admiral Chen Williams stood up in the human gallery. He was the head of Earth's military forces, and he had been silent through most of the presentation. Now he spoke for the first time. The Chancellor asked if Dr. Kim was threatening the Council. The answer is no, but I want to be very clear about something. His voice carried easily through the vast chamber. Every human ship is a weapon. Every human colony is a weapon. Every human citizen is a weapon. Not because we choose to be, but because that's what we are at a fundamental level. He gestured to the holographic displays. You've seen the reports. Humans lifting multi-ton objects. Humans surviving in hard vacuum. Humans taking apart starships with their bare hands. These aren't superhuman abilities. This is just what humans can do when they stop pretending to be something else. A Vothon representative raised a clawed hand. Are you saying humans have been hiding their true capabilities? Not hiding, Admiral Williams replied. Forgetting. When you have fusion bombs, you don't need to remember how to strangle an enemy with your bare hands. When you have plasma rifles, you don't need to know how to kill with a piece of broken metal. Dr. Kim stepped forward again. The weapons ban didn't weaken humanity. It awakened us. Every restriction you placed on us just made us more creative. Every limitation became a challenge to overcome. She gestured to the hologram showing human brain activity. This is what a human mind looks like when it's solving a combat problem. Notice the activity in the pattern recognition centers, the spatial processing areas, the tactical prediction networks. This brain isn't just thinking about how to win. It's thinking about 17 different ways to win simultaneously. The chamber erupted in concerned chatter. Aliens spoke to each other in dozens of languages, their voices mixing into a worried buzz. Chancellor Vextai raised his voice above the noise. Dr. Kim, what exactly are you telling this council? I'm telling you that you created the problem you were trying to solve. You wanted to make humans less dangerous, so you took away the tools that made us lazy. Now we're more dangerous than we've been in 1,000 years. She smiled again, and this time even more aliens backed away. The question you need to ask yourselves is, what are you going to do with that information? The hologram disappeared, leaving Rachel standing alone under the attention of thousands of alien eyes. The chamber was silent except for the sounds of nervous breathing and anxious movement. Finally, a voice spoke from the crystalline section. It was not Chancellor Vextai, but one of the elder members of their species. Dr. Kim, if humans are as dangerous as you claim, why haven't you conquered the galaxy already? Rachel's answer was simple and terrifying. Because we didn't have a reason to. But you might want to be very careful about giving us one. The silence that followed lasted for a very long time. Captain Nina Foster sat in the darkest corner of Murphy's bar on Proxima Station, nursing a drink that tasted like battery acid mixed with regret. Around her, the usual crowd of traders, smugglers, and information brokers filled the smoky air with whispered deals and half-true stories. But tonight everyone was talking about the same thing, the humans and what they did at Vega. 3 tables away, a Zephyrian trader was telling his version of the story to anyone who would listen. The blue creature's tentacles waved excitedly as he spoke in the common trade language. "I tell you, I saw the security footage from inside the Krek ship," the alien whispered, but his voice carried across the bar. The humans moved through those corridors like they were born in zero gravity. One of them, a female, she grabbed a plasma cannon barrel with her bare hands and crushed the focusing crystal. Just squeezed it until it turned to powder. A reptilian saurian at another table shook his scaled head. "That's impossible. Those crystals are harder than diamond. Nothing organic can break them." "I'm telling you what I saw," the Zephyrian insisted. And another human, he climbed through air ducts that were only 30 centimeters wide. Saurians couldn't fit through spaces that small, but this human moved through them like liquid. Nina kept her face blank, but inside she was smiling. The story was already growing in the telling. By next week, the humans at Vega would be 10 feet tall and shooting laser beams from their eyes. A crystalline being at the bar chimed in with its musical voice. "My cousin works in shipping insurance. He says piracy claims in human patrol sectors have dropped by 60% in the last month. Not because there's less piracy, but because pirates won't go anywhere humans might show up." "Smart pirates," muttered a scarred Vothan mercenary. "I fought humans in the border wars 10 years ago. Even when they had weapons, they were scary. Now that they don't have weapons, they're terrifying." Nina finished her drink and left the bar. The stories would keep spreading, getting bigger and stranger with each telling. That was exactly what humanity needed. Fear was a weapon too, and right now it was the most effective one they had. Back on her ship, the cargo vessel Star Runner, Nina sent a coded message to Earth Command. The response came back within hours, marked with the highest security classification. The message was simple. Phase 2 is approved. Operation Ghostwalker is a go. Over the next several weeks, human patrol ships began showing up in the strangest places. They appeared at pirate bases that were supposed to be secret. They intercepted smuggler convoys that were using routes nobody else knew about. They arrived at illegal weapons deals minutes before the transactions were supposed to happen. The criminal underworld was baffled. How were the humans finding out about operations that were planned in complete secrecy? How were they always in the right place at the right time? The answer was simpler than anyone imagined. Humans had always been good at gathering intelligence. They talked to people. They listened to gossip. They watched and learned and remembered everything. When you couldn't rely on weapons, information became your most valuable asset. Captain Eddie Kane commanded the patrol ship Wanderer when it intercepted a slave transport in the Tau Ceti system. The ship was carrying 200 prisoners from a dozen different species. They were going to be sold at auction on a planet where slavery was still legal. The slavers were hegemony military deserters using stolen warships. They had enough firepower to level a small city. The Wanderer had emergency flares and a loudspeaker. "Attention slave transport," Eddie broadcast on all frequencies. "Release your prisoners and prepare to be boarded." The response was immediate and predictable. Plasma bolts lit up space around the Wanderer. The human ship twisted and turned, avoiding the incoming fire with moves that made no sense. Capital ships weren't supposed to be that agile, but the Wanderer wasn't really a capital ship. It was a deployment platform. 60 humans in vacuum suits swarmed out of hidden bays. They moved through space using magnetic grapples and small thrusters. The slavers were so focused on the main ship that they never saw the boarding parties coming. Sergeant Linda Price was first through the hull of the lead transport. She found herself face to face with a hegemony soldier holding a military-grade rifle. The weapon could punch through starship armor. Linda smiled at him. The soldier tried to fire, but Linda was already moving. She grabbed the gun barrel and bent it into a pretzel shape. Then she picked up the soldier and threw him through a bulkhead wall. "Next," she said cheerfully. The boarding action lasted 12 minutes. When it was over, 6 slave ships were drifting powerless and their crews were locked in their own cargo holds. 200 prisoners were free and on their way to safe harbors. The hegemony commander's final message was broadcast across half the sector. They're not human. Nothing human moves that fast or hits that hard. There's something else wearing human skins. But the most important event happened 3 weeks later, when Chancellor Vextai summoned Ambassador Lisa Carter to a private meeting on the Council homeworld. The crystal being was agitated when Lisa arrived. His purple glow was dim and his voice carried undertones of confusion and worry. "Ambassador Carter, we need to discuss recent developments." Lisa sat in the chair provided for humans and waited. She had learned that silence was often the best response when dealing with alien psychology. "Your people have become unpredictable," Vextai continued. "The incident reports are troubling. A human who lifted a 3-ton cargo container with his bare hands. Another who survived in hard vacuum for 20 minutes without a suit. A third who disassembled a starship engine using only hand tools." "Are you complaining about our effectiveness, Chancellor?" Lisa asked innocently. "Crime rates have dropped in every sector where human patrol ships operate. Innocent beings are safer because of our efforts." "That's exactly the problem." Vextai's form flickered with anxiety. "Other species are beginning to ask questions. They want to know how humans can be so effective without weapons. They're starting to wonder if the Council made a mistake." Lisa remained silent, but inside she was celebrating. This was exactly what they had hoped for. "There are also reports of unusual human behavior," the Chancellor continued. "Humans working in teams with perfect coordination. Humans solving complex problems instantly. Humans displaying physical capabilities that exceed known biological limits." "Chancellor, are you suggesting that humans are somehow cheating?" "I'm suggesting that your species may not be what we thought you were." Lisa stood to leave. "With respect, Chancellor, humans are exactly what we've always been. You just forced us to remember it." After she left, Vextai stood alone in his chamber for a long time. Outside the crystal windows, ships from 100 different species moved through the space lanes. All of them followed Council law. All of them obeyed Council authority. But the humans were different now. They followed the letter of the law while completely ignoring its spirit. They had no weapons, but they didn't seem to need weapons. They were more effective at keeping the peace than species that had been civilized for millennia, and they were getting stronger. Reports came in daily of new human capabilities. Humans who could navigate through asteroid fields using only their instincts. Humans who could repair any technology just by looking at it. Humans who seemed to know what their enemies were thinking before the enemies knew it themselves. The other Council species were getting nervous. Some were asking if the weapon ban should be lifted. Others were suggesting that humans should be given even more restrictions. But a very few, were beginning to ask a different question. What if the humans weren't the problem? What if the problem was that the Council had never understood what humans really were? Late that night, in secure facilities across human space, military analysts studied the intelligence reports. The plan was working better than anyone had dared hope. By taking away humanity's weapons, the Council had forced humans to become something far more dangerous. They had become themselves. And the galaxy was starting to realize that weapons had never been what made humans scary. Weapons had just made them convenient. The real terror was what humans could do when convenience was no longer an option. 3 months had passed since the Council took away human weapons. Commander Greg Phillips sat in his captain's chair aboard the UES Harmony and tried not to think about how defenseless his ship was. The Harmony was humanity's first patrol vessel built under the new rules. It had no guns, no missiles, no shields worth mentioning. It was basically a flying metal box with engines. Greg's crew had volunteered for this mission. All 60 of them knew they were probably going to die. But someone had to test the new way of doing things. Someone had to find out if humans could survive in space without weapons. The distress call came at 0800 hours. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was working the communications station when the signal reached them. Her face went pale as she listened to the message. "Sir, we're getting a mayday from the cargo ship New Denver. They're under attack in the Vega system, pirates." Greg felt his stomach tighten. "What kind of pirates?" Kate worked her controls for a moment. "Krex raiders, sir. 4 ships. The New Denver is carrying medical supplies to the colony on Vega Prime. 300 families live there. The Krex were bad news. They were lizard-like creatures with sharp teeth and no conscience. They killed for fun and took slaves to sell on the black market. Before the weapon ban, A human warship could have scared them off just by showing up. Now the Harmony had nothing to threaten them with except harsh words. How long to reach them, Greg asked. 2 hours at maximum speed, came the reply from the helm. Do it. The bridge crew looked at each other. They all knew this was probably suicide. The Kreks had weapons that could turn the Harmony into scrap metal in seconds. But they also knew that hundreds of innocent people would die if nobody helped. 2 hours later, the Harmony dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Vega system. What they saw made everyone's blood run cold. The New Denver was drifting helpless in space. Parts of its hull were melted and twisted from weapon hits. Its cargo bays were torn open and supplies were floating away into the void. Around it circled 4 Kreks destroyer ships. Each one was twice the size of the Harmony and covered in gun turrets. Open a channel to the lead Krek ship, Greg ordered. The alien face that appeared on the main screen was a nightmare. Scales covered its head and neck. Its eyes were yellow and cold. Rows of needle teeth filled its mouth. When it spoke, its voice was like metal scraping on stone. Human ship, run away now or we will kill you too. This prey belongs to us. I'm afraid I can't do that, Greg said calmly. You're attacking an unarmed cargo vessel. Leave now, and we won't have a problem. The Krek's commander threw back its head and laughed. The sound made everyone on the bridge want to hide. You will stop us with what weapons, pink meat? Your council masters cut off your claws. You are helpless. Who said anything about weapons? Greg smiled. For the first time, the alien looked confused. Greg turned to his crew. Remember what we trained for. Remember what we learned. We don't need guns to be dangerous. He pressed the ship-wide communication button. All hands, this is the captain. We have innocent people who need our help. The enemy thinks we're helpless because we don't have weapons. They're about to learn how wrong they are. The Harmony began moving toward the Krek ships. This was insane by every rule of space combat. Capital ships were supposed to fight at long range with missiles and energy beams. They were never supposed to get close to each other. But Greg wasn't planning to fight like a capital ship. Take us to 50 meters from their lead destroyer, he ordered. Sir, that's way too close, the helmsman said. If they fire at point-blank range, they won't fire, Greg said. They're too confused. They don't understand what we're doing. He was right. The Krek ships had stopped shooting. Their commanders were too busy trying to figure out what the crazy humans were planning. The Harmony pulled alongside the first destroyer like two boats meeting on a calm lake. Through the viewports, Greg could see Krek's crew members staring back at them. They looked scared and confused. EVA teams, you're up, Greg announced. This was the moment they had all trained for. 30 humans in spacesuits launched from hidden airlocks on the Harmony. They carried no weapons except cutting tools and climbing gear. They moved through space using small thruster packs and magnetic boots. The Kreks finally understood what was happening. Alarms started screaming on their ships. Gun turrets tried to turn to target the boarding parties. But the humans were too close and moving too fast. Sergeant Mike Torres was the first to reach the destroyer's hull. He found an access hatch and began cutting through it with a plasma torch. Behind him, Corporal Jenny Walsh was already looking for weapon control panels. Remember the briefings, Mike called over the radio. We studied these ships for months. We know every weakness, every critical system, every way to shut them down. The humans poured through the hull breach like water through a crack. They moved through the ship's corridors with purpose. They had memorized the layouts of every Krek's vessel. They knew exactly where to go. The Krek's crew tried to fight back, but they were not prepared for this kind of combat. Their weapons were designed for ship-to-ship battles. In the narrow corridors, their big guns were useless. The humans moved too fast and knew the ship better than its own crew. Jenny found the main weapon control room. 3 Krek's guards were trying to manually fire the guns. She grabbed the first one and threw him into a wall hard enough to crack the metal. The second one tried to shoot her with a hand weapon. She took it away from him and crushed it with her bare hands. The third guard just stared at her in terror. Smart choice, she said, and began ripping out the weapon control circuits. All over the ship, humans were doing the same thing. They moved like ghosts through the corridors. They knew exactly which systems to break and which ones to leave alone. They disabled weapons, engines, life support, and communications in a matter of minutes. The Kreks had never seen anything like it. These humans moved through their ship like they owned it. They took apart complex systems with their bare hands. They climbed through spaces that should have been too small for their bodies. They seemed to know the ship's design better than the engineers who built it. Within 15 minutes, the first destroyer was completely helpless. Its weapons were dead. Its engines were offline. Its crew was locked in storage rooms. The other 3 Krek ships tried to run, but the humans had planned for that too. Teams were already boarding them. The same thing happened to each one. Humans swarmed through the ships like antibodies attacking an infection. They didn't kill anyone, but they made it very clear that they could have. When it was over, 4 Kreks destroyers floated powerless in space. Their crews were alive but thoroughly defeated. The cargo ship New Denver was safe, and its medical supplies would reach the colony on Vega Prime. The Krek's commander's final message was broadcast on an open channel that reached across half the galaxy. "What are you creatures? How did you do this?" Greg's answer was simple. "We're humans without weapons. Turns out that just makes us more creative." Word of the Vega incident spread through space faster than light-speed communication. The story got bigger with each telling. Some said the humans had used invisible weapons. Others claimed they had mind control powers. The truth was both simpler and more frightening. Humans had simply done what humans do best. They had adapted, learned, and overcome. They had turned their weakness into strength. They had shown the galaxy that taking away their tools just made them remember how dangerous they were without tools. The Kreks never raided human shipping lanes again. Neither did most other pirate groups. The message was clear. Humans might not have weapons, but they were weapons. And that was just the beginning. 1 year had passed since the Council banned human weapons. Captain Sam Rodriguez sat in his command chair aboard the UES Resilience and watched the tactical display with calm eyes. What he saw should have made any reasonable person want to run away screaming. 40 hegemony battleships hung in space around the peaceful, colony world of New Haven. Each ship was a floating fortress armed with enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. They belonged to a species that had never joined the Council, never agreed to follow civilized rules, and never showed mercy to anyone weaker than themselves. The colony below had 2 million inhabitants, families, children, elderly beings from a dozen different species. They had built their settlement in Council space because they believed they would be safe there. "They had been wrong, sir." "Incoming transmission from the hegemony flagship," reported Lieutenant Bobby Chen from the communications station. "Put it through." The face that appeared on the main screen was a nightmare of scales, scars, and hatred. General Krask was one of the hegemony's most brutal commanders. He had destroyed 17 colony worlds in the last 5 years. His troops took no prisoners and showed no mercy. "Human ship, you will withdraw immediately or be destroyed. This world now belongs to the hegemony. The inhabitants will be enslaved or eliminated as we see fit." Sam studied the alien's face for a moment before responding. "I'm afraid I can't allow that, General. You have one chance to withdraw your forces and leave Council space peacefully." Krask's laughter sounded like breaking glass mixed with screaming metal. "You have no weapons, human. Your Council masters neutered you like pets." "What will you do, throw rocks at my battleships?" "Something like that," Sam agreed. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in the General's yellow eyes. The Resilience began to accelerate, but not toward the enemy fleet. Instead, it headed straight for the planet below. At the same time, its hull began to unfold like a mechanical flower. Panels slid apart to reveal that the ship wasn't really a ship at all. It was a deployment platform designed to look like a patrol vessel. "What are you doing?" Krask demanded. "Saving lives," Sam replied simply. Thousands of humans in powered exoskeletons swarmed out of hidden bays throughout the ship. They moved with purpose toward the planet's surface, completely ignoring the hegemony fleet that could have vaporized them at any moment. "You cannot evacuate an entire world," Krask snarled. "It's impossible. Watch us." The human evacuation teams hit the planet's surface like a controlled meteor shower. They spread out across continents in perfect coordination, their movements guided by tactical computers and centuries of military experience. Each team knew exactly where to go and what to do. They didn't move like rescuers. They moved like a precision machine designed for one purpose: saving lives. Captain Janet Brooks led Team Alpha to New Haven's capital city. Her squad of 12 humans began loading civilians into transport pods at a rate that defied belief. Each pod could hold 50 beings, and the humans were filling them in under 3 minutes per load. "How are they moving so fast?" asked a terrified Zephyrian child as Janet lifted him into a transport pod. "Practice," Janet said gently, then turned to her team. "Next group, let's go." The evacuation proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Humans worked in shifts around the clock, their enhanced suits allowing them to function without rest or food for days at a time. They moved through cities and countryside, gathering every living being they could find. But General Krask made a fatal mistake. One of his battleships targeted a civilian evacuation zone where humans were loading children into transport pods. The plasma bombardment killed 300 innocent beings in an instant. The human response was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. Every evacuation team on the planet suddenly changed. They had been rescuers 30 seconds earlier. Now they were something else entirely. Sam's voice carried across every human communication channel. "All teams priority shift to hostile suppression. Save the innocents first, but make sure this never happens again." The transformation was terrifying to watch. Humans who had been gently helping civilians suddenly became instruments of precise destruction. They moved through space toward the hegemony fleet like antibodies responding to an infection. Lieutenant Mark Stone was part of the first wave to reach Krask's flagship. His powered suit allowed him to survive in hard vacuum and gave him the strength to tear through starship armor with his bare hands. But it was his human brain that made him truly dangerous. Mark had studied this class of battleship for months. He knew every system, every weakness, every critical component. He knew exactly where to go and what to break. He entered the ship through a waste disposal port that was too small for most species, but perfect for a determined human. Once inside, he moved through maintenance tunnels with the confidence of someone who had built the ship himself. The hegemony crew tried to stop him, but they were fighting something they didn't understand. Mark wasn't just a soldier in a suit. He was a human who had been reminded of what humans were capable of. He disabled the ship's weapon systems by ripping out control circuits with his hands. He shut down the engines by crushing their fuel injection systems. He took control of life support by rewiring the central computer using nothing but pieces of broken equipment. All over the ship, humans were doing similar things. They moved through the corridors like they owned the place. They took apart military hardware that had taken years to build. They neutralized trained soldiers with casual efficiency. The same thing was happening to every hegemony ship in the system. General Krask found himself trapped in his own command center as humans systematically dismantled his flagship around him. His weapons were dead, his engines were offline, and his crew was locked in their own storage compartments. A human appeared in his doorway. The powered suit made the figure look like a mechanical giant, but the voice that came from the speakers was calm and reasonable. "General, you have a choice. Surrender now and we'll let you live. Keep fighting and we'll take your ship apart piece by piece with you inside it." Krask looked around his ruined command center. Control panels sparked and smoked. His tactical displays showed that all 40 of his battleships were in the same condition. 40 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy, neutralized by humans with no weapons. "What are you?" he whispered. "We're what happens when you give humans a reason to care about something more than their own safety." The evacuation of New Haven took 18 hours. 2 million beings were safely transported to Council worlds where they could rebuild their lives. Not one civilian was lost to the hegemony attack. The fate of General Krask's fleet became a legend that spread throughout the galaxy. 40 battleships disabled without a single shot being fired by human forces. Their crews were left alive but thoroughly humbled. The ships themselves were towed to Council space as evidence of what happened when civilized beings were threatened. 6 months later, Chancellor Vextai quietly announced that the Council was reconsidering the weapons ban on human vessels. The official reason given was that human patrol effectiveness had exceeded all expectations. The real reason was that the Council had finally understood what Dr. Rachel Kim had tried to tell them. Weapons had never been what made humans dangerous. Weapons had just been a convenience. When that convenience was removed, humans had simply adapted. They had remembered what they were before they had tools to rely on. They had become something that was far more effective and infinitely more terrifying than any armed force. Captain Sam Rodriguez received a commendation from the Council for his actions at New Haven. The ceremony was held on the homeworld, in the same chamber where humanity had been stripped of their weapons 1 year earlier. As he stood at attention while alien dignitaries praised his heroism, Sam thought about how much had changed. Human patrol ships were now the most respected peacekeepers in Council space. Crime had dropped to historic lows wherever humans operated. Hostile species gave human colonies a wide berth, and humanity had discovered something more valuable than any weapon: the knowledge that they didn't need permission to be what they had always been. After the ceremony, Ambassador Lisa Carter found Sam in the reception hall. She was smiling, but her eyes held a warning. "The Council is talking about giving us our weapons back," she said quietly. "What did you tell them?" "I told them we'd think about it." Sam nodded. "Good answer. Let them wonder whether we even want weapons anymore." Outside the great windows of the Council chamber, ships from 100 species moved through space in orderly patterns. They all followed Council law now. They all respected Council authority. But everyone knew that the real peacekeepers weren't the ones with the biggest guns or the most advanced technology. They were the ones who had learned to be dangerous without needing tools to do it. Humanity had been forced to remember what they were at their core. The galaxy would never make that mistake again. In the end, the Council's greatest error hadn't been banning human weapons. It had been assuming that weapons were what made humans worth fearing. In the first place, they had simply reminded humanity that the most dangerous weapon in the galaxy was a human who had a reason to fight, and the universe would never be the same.